Hello and good morning, or afternoon, or evening, wherever you find yourself. It's morning for me. I'm headed toward a job I'm doing as a carpenter. I've been a carpenter for 25 some years. Welcome to my channel, What Was Seen. I also have a complimentary channel, The Coherence Path. And they're both about consciousness. This channel, What Was Seen, they kind of cross-pollinate each other, but this channel, What Was Seen, is about things that are paranormal, things that are unexplained, things that we can't normally fit into the framework of what we think reality is. And so this subject for this morning is superhuman strength. You've probably heard of stories of people, exhibiting superhuman strength. An example, if you look at historically, there's actually thousands of examples, but what's been on the news time and again is like a jack that was used to jack up a car while somebody worked underneath it, slipped or fell and crushed a person, mostly men, right? Because it's usually men working on cars, typically. I remember one story that it was on the news, and the man's son walked up and picked up the car and allowing his dad to slide out from underneath the car, thus avoiding death. Now, I've had two experiences of superhuman strength, and I will first state unequivocally and clearly that there's nothing special about me physically whatsoever. I have heard a noise, so I turned around. There's just a gentleman passing, working on the bridge behind me. But anyway, there's nothing special about me physically. I was a weightlifter when I was in high school and in my late 20s, and for whatever reason, no matter how I tried, I really couldn't get much stronger than I was. It was like there was a plateau within my body. Endurance-wise, I used to squat 3 sets of 75 reps of 225 pounds. I probably couldn't even squat that once now. But so I could squat a high repetition of a reasonable or average weight for somebody doing weightlifting, but I could never squat more than about 400 pounds. That was about my max. So no matter how many hours I spent in the gym trying to get stronger, it just wouldn't happen. But I had a couple instances where I had superhuman strength, which, when these circumstances happened, it made absolutely no sense either. You would think that, it's adrenaline. That's what they always say. It's adrenaline that gives these people the ability to tear off, like a elderly woman tore off a door off of an automobile to save her grandchild from a car that was on fire. There's all kinds of instances if you look them up, but usually it's coupled with an emergency, something like that. But I think that consciousness, the universe, God, however you want to frame it, it doesn't matter to me, but to me it's all consciousness. It had me experience straightening out my beautiful hairdo here. This is what happens when you just get up and go to work and don't care about your hair. But I think the universe had me experience these feats of superhuman strength for the purpose that I'm demonstrating now, and that's to share it with you, in that it doesn't require an emergency situation, because It's not something that happens dependent upon adrenaline. So the structure behind me, and that's why I filmed here this morning, is a bridge that they're building. And you can see that the structure of the concrete and steel is exhibiting this massive amount of structural strength to hold up, this bridge and all the cars that'll travel over it for the next 100 years or more. And that's a natural strength. My body being able to pick up a hammer and a nail, or your ability to, crack an egg and put it in the pan and fry it. Those are all normal strengths. This bridge, the way it's constructed has natural strength. However, if a massive amount of weight was put on the structure behind me that didn't meet its specifications for load, in other words, if you piled a meteor that was the size of a football field on top of that, it would just fall apart most likely, because it follows natural law. Just as when we're cracking an egg or hammering a nail, it follows natural law. So I'm going to express to you and tell you about two circumstances that happened to me that didn't require adrenaline at all. The first time it happened didn't even require me having an intention or a thought concerning the issue, and the second one was with intention. So the first one, I was about 30 years old, I believe, and I was working in a department store on the second floor, and I had to go up an escalator to get to the floor at which I worked. And I worked with probably a half a dozen or more other people. At this time, I wasn't lifting weights. I was a runner. My body was very lean. I wasn't real muscular. I just looked like a normal average guy. I was mountain biking, and I was walking to work. So I wasn't doing anything that would put stress on my body as far as like lifting heavy objects. Okay, so it wasn't like I just was lifting, bench pressing 200 pounds and squatting 400, and then I went to work and moved this object. No, it wasn't the case at all. I was just an average guy, okay? And I was in shape, but I was just average as far as, and I've always just been sort of average in strength. There's some people that naturally have strength. I knew a kid in high school, a guy never worked out, but sometimes he'd just show up in the gym and out bench or out squat anybody. And he was the same size as me, but somehow he just had natural strength. And I know relatives of mine that were that way, but that wasn't me. So I have my little suit on, and I'm going up the escalator to work in this department store to sell clothes. And as I come to the top of the escalator, I had a feeling that came over my body. Now, looking back, it's like, why did that feeling even arise? And I note, though, however, that the feeling showed up before I mentally or cognitively even understood why that feeling was there. As I came up the escalator and then I turned my head, I saw that my manager, a female, and 5 employees, I think it was 4 or 5 employees, they were all standing in a tight group by this large shelving unit. Now, this wasn't your normal, run-of-the-mill shelving unit. This was a shelving unit that was built for that department store, 100 years before. So it was massive. And it was about 8 feet long. It was probably nearly 7 feet tall. It was about 4 feet wide, and it was solid wood and metal, and the thing was a tank, okay? And they were all standing around it, and there was sort of a whisper in my mind that said, go ahead and move that for them. That was kind of what it said. It said, go ahead and move that for them. And but mentally I remember thinking, move what? Why? What's the point? And so I asked them, I said, what is it that you guys need? And they were all looking at me as I came up the escalator, and they said, we've tried to move this and we can't, it's too heavy. And there was, like I said, 5 or 6 of them. And I walked, there was a feel, that feeling stayed in my body. I walked over to the shelving unit, I grabbed one corner of it, I picked it up, I moved it about 6 feet. Well, I asked them first, well, where are you guys trying to move it? As I walked up, and I grabbed it after they answered, I moved it 6 feet over, I went directly to the other side of it, I picked it up and moved it over, and that was done. And they all just looked at me like, what the hell? You know, how did you even do that? And to me, it didn't even weigh anything. It was as if it was made out of air. I remember that my body, it required no, you know, bracing my back or, you know, pulling in my elbows and my legs to really center my force and really, you know, struggle with the thing. No, I just walked over there, I moved, picked it up and I moved it. I walked to the other end and picked it up and I moved it over, and they all looked at me like, how the heck did you do that? And after a few short sentences of, you know, shock and thanks and everything else, I just said, I don't know. I just had this feeling when I come up the escalator, before you guys even asked me, you know, when you're, you know, and this voice that said, move this thing. So that's what I did. And I went back to work, and that was that. Never thought of it again. Once in a while, some of them would come up to me and say, hey, I remember when you moved that object, how did you do that? And so then about, fast forward, it was probably about 10 years later, I had, you know, left that job, went on 3 years bed rest, got married, and I was, a guy I met asked me to paint a warehouse. And there was another guy there with me. We were both supposed to paint it. We didn't know each other. And inside this warehouse, the ceilings were probably at least 30 feet tall, 25 to 30 feet tall. It was fairly large on the interior, probably 100 feet by 75 feet. It was a big building. We had to use these big extension poles and these really wide, 3-foot wide rollers to like roll the paint on the wall. Because that, you know, that's the tools he gave us, and that's how he wanted us to do it, which was fine. Anyway, inside of the warehouse was a very large crane. It was suspended. No, it wasn't suspended. I was thinking that part of it was suspended on the ceiling, but that's not true. It was just a gigantic self-contained sort of lifting device, I think it was. It was massive. I mean, the steel was probably, you know, 3/4 to an inch thick or more. There were parts of it that were solid steel. The structure, the frame of it was massive. I mean, parts of it were probably 2 feet wide or thick. If I was to look at that today, I would say that, you know, I don't know, you'd have to have like one of those semi tow trucks to probably load that thing, if you could even do it with that, maybe 2 of those to load it onto like a huge flatbed trailer to like move it somewhere. It was massive. It was huge, and it had these massive big chains that went up, and there was a big hook in the middle. It was kind of shaped like an upside down U, and it was on big rollers, big, huge rollers, massive rollers, you know, and but it was in our way, and the guy I was with, he was looking at it and he's like, that thing's in our way. How the heck are we going to move that? You know? And I think it was that at that moment, it's hard for me to remember now because it's been a while and I haven't thought about that circumstance that much, but I remember that he mentioned that, you know, it was in our way and that it was massive, and he didn't know how we were going to get around it, how we were supposed to do that section of the wall or whatever. And anyway, prompted by his conversation, I had the same feeling. I had this feeling like, oh, I'll just move it. And I walked over to it and I just pushed it. And I just pushed it seemingly with the right amount of force and inertia that I was able to move it to this just a little ways away from where we were working, so that we could get behind it. I went to one end and I pushed it, and it moved over, and then I went to the other end and I pushed it. And he just looked at me like in complete utter shock that I had done that. And I didn't think about it because I'd had that other experience as well as other paranormal experiences. And, you know, I didn't have explanation for any of it. I just knew that, well, okay, that happened. And he tried to push it, and there's no freaking way he could move the thing. And so anyway, you know, he was like sort of, you know, his eyes were all like, what the hell's going on? And I said, I have no idea. I said, I just had a feeling I could do it, and I did it. And again, it didn't require any adrenaline. It didn't require any force, really. I mean, it was kind of like me pushing a shopping cart and full of groceries, maybe. Because I did feel like the weight of the thing, but it moved with such ease that it wasn't that difficult. Like if your shopping cart's full of groceries and you're pushing it to your car, you know, it requires, you could feel some force there and weight, but it's not that hard to push. And it was this way with this large thing. The base of just one part of it was at least 6 feet wide, but it had this big metal piece that went across the bottom, connecting the you know, the U shape, went down, then it connected at the bottom, and there's a bunch of stuff, plus all the wheels. I don't know how much the thing weighed. I don't know, 40,000 pounds. I have no idea. But anyway, we just went back to painting. I went back to painting. We did that job. That was the first time I'd worked with that guy. I never did again. And so, you know, I think I came home and told my ex, yeah, this is what happened today. And that was the last of it. I didn't think about it again. In fact, I've thought of it off and on, but, you know, maybe once every 3 years I've thought of that. Just the same as the other incidents. I've done a lot of research. There's literally thousands of circumstances where people have moved objects. And they're usually coupled with the thought that there was adrenaline involved. And the subject of this video is superhuman strength. And but that's pointing to that, oh, we have superhuman strength. But I don't think that's what's happening at all, whether it's in my case or the cases of adrenaline. I think that what's happening is, in the cases of emergency situations, what's a person do when they're in a dire circumstance? They're asking a question. They're asking, how do I get out of this circumstance? How do I resolve this? How do I find a solution? And at that moment, consciousness answers that question. It doesn't all the time. For some reason, it's for the purpose of that person's growth, or for the purpose of other people learning from it, as far as just going, there might be more to life than what meets the eye, you know? And I think that's what the purpose of these circumstances are a lot, and that's just to wake us up. Whether it's superhuman strength, seeing ghosts, aliens, Bigfoot, it doesn't matter what it is. I think it's all consciousness trying to wake us up, trying to helping us try to see that there's more to life than, you know, what we think. And because what we normally think is in a box, and that box is a human life. So it causes us to question the meaning of life, the purpose of life, how life really operates, and so forth. In my circumstance, where it required no superhuman strength at all whatsoever, um, I think it was just the universe trying to wake me up. That's all it was. It was it was going, hey, check this out. The norm that you think exists doesn't, and we're going to have you experience it so you never forget, and it causes some sort of questioning on your part. And I think that's all it was. It wasn't about me. It certainly wasn't about me showing off or, getting any sort of attention, because I had no interest in that. I didn't want anybody to go, ooh, look how strong Stefan is. It's like, no, you'll find out really quick if you ask me to, bicep curl 125 pounds. That's just not going to happen. Even when I was in really good shape, I could bicep curl 125 pounds. And you see other guys in the gym do it like 10 times, So I've never had superhuman strength. I've never claimed to have superhuman strength. I've never even claimed to have really good strength. In construction, there's been times I've had to lift things. I pretty much do everything by myself, and I just find creative ways to augment doing things. Like recently, I just reframed the front of a garage, and I had to install a beam that was 18 foot 9 inches. There was an I-beam that was a quarter-inch thick, 4 by 8 inches tall. And I think that the steel yard told me it weighed about 300 pounds or something like that. I don't know. But an object like that, which is an odd object to work with, is freaking heavy. I mean, I built a series of wooden ladders basically on each end of the garage to walk this beam up at an angle, one end at a time. And each time I went to one end, I would lift it, only about a foot to get to the next step that I had made, set it there, secure it, then I'd walk to the other end, lift it a foot, I'd go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I exhibited no superhuman strength. In fact, for days after that, my whole body freaking hurt. It was horrible. I mean, the weight of that on my structure was like, man, I need to go to the gym and work out or something, because, man, that was a lot of work. So, but I know that right now, if for whatever reason consciousness decided, oh, let's have Stefan do another feat of superhuman strength, it would happen. Not because of me, not because I have any innate power or strength or anything. It would just be for some purpose consciously. Like, oh, we want Stefan to be reminded that he's just not a human being, that he's actually a part of the consciousness that is in and all through things, or God, or whatever. And we want him to just be reminded of that. And so some circumstance would come up where I would exhibit superhuman strength. But it would have nothing to do with me whatsoever. So what I'd love to hear about is other people who have had experiences like this and the other ones I'm doing videos on, because I'd love to interview you and talk to you about how that experience not only made you feel at the time, how it possibly made other people think and feel at the time, but also how that meaning, if there was some, translated over the course of your life, and how possibly you changed in response to it. And so if you've had an experience of superhuman strength, or an instance where something happened physically you have absolutely no explanation for, then contact me through my email, through my my YouTube channel, What Was Seen, and we can set up a Zoom video so that you can talk about it. Because the more we share things like this, the more we talk about things like this, it just opens up everybody's consciousness. It doesn't matter what religious background or whatever belief system you have. It doesn't matter because consciousness doesn't care. The universe doesn't care. It's created everything. So it's not in one field or the other. But the one thing it does do is it's always trying to lower entropy. It's always trying to increase awareness and growth and broaden our perspective of who we think we are and what we think life is all about. And the true meaning of life really is for us to learn to grow up, us to learn to be loving, us to learn to be kind, and that's pretty much it. So I'm going to sign off for now. Thank you for visiting my channel. I appreciate your time. Next time I might have a better hairdo. I'm not sure. Or I might just suspend that for a video down the road as a treat. You can look forward to my hair being really fancy and something. That's a joke, by the way. I don't care about my hair, and I don't think you do either. So have a great day. Just enjoy your day, whatever it is. If you got hard times, you got easy times, just let go. Just go with it. Just ask it what it's offering. And we can't do it all. Just try to enjoy wherever you're at and be who you are, whatever you want to be, whoever you want to be. And if there's something that's mysterious, investigate it, ponder it. Why not? And I'll see you on the next video. All right, thank you.